At my mother's funeral, my sister said into the mic, "He only showed up because he's broke again." My cousins whispered, some laughed. I stayed silent, just clenched my fists. 3 weeks later, she found out who paid for Mom's house all along. "He only showed up because he's broke again." Those were the words my sister, Maribel, said into the mic at our mother's funeral. I wasn't the one she was talking about. That jab was directed at our brother, Isaac, but in that moment, I felt it too. The judgment, the sneer behind the voice. The eyes turning. Our cousins whispering. Some even laughing. And I just sat there, fists clenched, stomach turning, wondering how we ended up here. 3 weeks later, Maribel would find out who actually paid off Mom's house. Spoiler, it wasn't her. And it wasn't Isaac. It was me. She had no idea. No one did. And now she wants to talk. My name is Helena, I'm 47, and I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. Our mother, Colette, passed away recently after a long battle with pancreatic cancer. I was the one who took care of her during her final year, moved into her small house in Black Mountain, North Carolina, after leaving behind my life in California. My sister, Maribel 43, stayed in Charlotte with her husband, Jonah, and their kids. My brother Isaac 45 lives in Durham and visits when it's convenient. Maribel has always been the one who's put together, beautiful, socially graceful, with a curated life that looks like a Better Homes and Gardens spread. She's also the kind of person who weaponizes politeness and uses "bless your heart" as an insult. I've always been the black sheep. I never married again after my divorce at 39. Never had kids. Worked in tech. Lived far from home. The distance became part of my identity. And because I didn't post every favor I did for our mother on Facebook or make grand speeches at family events, my siblings assumed I was distant. Absent. Selfish. They didn't know the truth. When Mom got sick, it wasn't sudden. It was a slow unraveling. At first, it was fatigue. Then weight loss. Then the diagnosis we all feared. She didn't ask for help right away, but I could tell she was scared. I made the decision within a week. Packed my stuff, sublet my apartment, told my freelance clients I was going to need flexibility. I moved back into my childhood home, even though that house held memories I wasn't ready to unpack. Mom's health declined steadily. She went from walking to needing a walker, then a wheelchair. I took over everything: cooking, cleaning, scheduling hospice care. When she couldn't keep food down, I tried smoothies. When she lost her appetite, I read to her just to distract her from the nausea. Maribel visited 3 times during the year. She brought expensive candles, hydrating face masks, and once, a cheese board. I'm not kidding. Isaac came a few more times, helped mow the lawn once, then disappeared again. I didn't ask for help. They didn't offer. What they really didn't know is how far I went financially. Years before she was sick, Mom had already been struggling. She never told them. She told me. In 2016, after a tree collapsed on her roof during a spring storm, she called me in tears. Insurance gave her half of what she needed. I sent her $22,000. She didn't ask. I offered. And that became our quiet pattern. She lost part of her pension in a bad investment? I wired money. She needed a new HVAC system in the dead of winter? I paid for it. When she was finally diagnosed with terminal cancer, her mortgage had ballooned from years of deferred payments and rising taxes. She was drowning in debt. I paid it off. I pulled from savings. I cashed in an old mutual fund I'd forgotten I had. I even sold my car. I never told a soul. Because in our family, helping quietly never earned you applause. Only drama did. And so we arrived at the funeral. St. Bernadette's hadn't changed much in 30 years. Still smelled like lemon polish and candle wax. The same elderly usher greeted us at the door. The pews were filled with people who remembered Mom when she was still energetic and full of sass. She taught Sunday school for decades. They adored her. The service itself was quiet, reverent. Until Maribel took the mic. She walked up like she was accepting an Emmy. Adjusted the microphone. Smoothed her dress. Took a breath. And then she said it. He only showed up because he's broke again. Aimed at Isaac, but clearly for the whole room. Aimed at me, in her own way. There was an awkward laugh from the back. Someone muttered, "Jesus." I could feel the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just clenched my fists and waited for it to be over. 3 weeks later, it all came out. Mom had named me the executor of her will. That alone surprised them. Maribel had assumed she'd get that role. She assumed she'd get everything. The house, the china cabinet, the savings account. But when the lawyer handed over the paperwork, it was clear, the house was mine. More than that, she'd already transferred the deed to me 6 months before she passed. Quietly. Legally. Included in the documents were copies of the bank transfers, notarized letters, and a written statement from Mom explaining everything. She gave me safety, it read in her looping cursive. She gave me peace of mind when I needed it most. This house is hers now. That is my final wish. Maribel's face went pale. Jonah looked like he wanted to say something, but for once, kept his mouth shut. Isaac just looked down at his shoes. No one had known. Not even my brother. Maribel didn't take it well. She stormed out, muttering something about manipulation. She didn't come back. The following week, the text started. "Maribel, I didn't know about any of this. Why didn't Mom tell us?" Me, she didn't want to. Maribel, it feels wrong. It's not what she would have wanted. Me, it's exactly what she wanted. Then Jonah called. He suggested we talk like adults and figure out a fair split. I told him the documents were signed, notarized, and filed with the county. There was no split. This wasn't a negotiation. That was when Maribel showed up at the gate. She didn't knock. Just stood there in the drizzle, wearing a trench coat and sunglasses. Like something out of a sad indie movie. "I didn't know," she said, her voice low. "I really didn't." "I know," I replied. "You never asked." She stood outside the gate for a long time. I didn't invite her in. I didn't move to open it either. The rain had started to pick up, slow and steady, but she didn't flinch. Just stood there like she was waiting for me to say something else. "I was angry," she finally said. "I thought you ran off. You were gone for so long, and then suddenly you were back and I thought you were just here for the show." That was the part that stung the most. She thought I came back for show. As if I uprooted my life, left behind everything, sat beside Mom as she lost her ability to speak, because I wanted attention? I took a slow breath. "I didn't tell anyone what I was doing," I said. "Not because I was hiding it. Because I didn't think I needed to prove anything." She shifted her weight, a nervous tic I remembered from when we were little. I used to cover for her when she'd break something in the house. She'd stand just like that, on one leg, toe pointing toward the other, waiting for the dust to settle. "I thought we were all in this together," she said, more to herself than to me. "I thought we had an understanding." "No," I replied, "you had assumptions. That's different." She looked up. Her eyes were wet, though I couldn't tell if it was the rain or something else. But she didn't blink. "I want to fix this," she said quietly. "I don't know how, but I do." I didn't have an answer for that. The thing is, people talk about forgiveness like it's a light switch. Like once someone admits they were wrong, you flip the switch and everything's bright again. But that's not how this works. I spent a year inside that house watching Mom die a little more each week. Cleaning out medical waste. Managing her pills. Holding her hand when she was too scared to sleep. Answering her in the middle of the night when she forgot where she was. You don't forget those things. And you definitely don't forget sitting through your mother's funeral while your sister throws shade over a mic like she's giving a toast at a wedding. Maribel had no idea what Mom was going through. She brought candles and charcuterie and left after lunch. She didn't scrub vomit out of the carpet at 3 a.m. She didn't help Mom shower after she stopped being able to stand. I did. And I didn't post it. I didn't text it. I didn't make a show of it. I just did it. So when people started whispering that Maribel was shocked, that it was so out of character for Colette to give everything to just one child, I let them whisper. They didn't know the truth. After Maribel left that day, I stood at the window for a while, watching her drive away. The tires kicked up mud from the gravel driveway, the kind Mom used to curse about every time it rained. I thought about how many times I'd offered to pave it, but she said no, she liked it the way it was. Said it reminded her of the house she grew up in. It hit me then, how many things I knew about her that no one else did. Mom was private, but not with me. She told me stories. Secrets. Things she wouldn't have shared with Maribel or Isaac because, in her words, they don't sit still long enough to listen. That wasn't a compliment. It was a quiet observation. An ache in her voice when she said it. They're not bad kids, she told me once, they just don't know how to be with someone unless there's a reason. I finally understood what she meant. Over the next few days, I got a handful of messages from extended family. Some were apologetic. I didn't realize how much you did for her. You always were the quiet one. Guess that meant you were just doing the work instead of talking about it. Others were vague. Are you sure that's what your mom wanted? Your sister's really upset. Maybe there's a way to share, in spirit? One message from Aunt Elise made me pause. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. And maybe that's true. Maybe at some point I'll get there. But it wasn't going to be that week. Maribel texted again a few days later. She said she'd been going through Mom's old journals. That she found one from 2019 where Mom wrote about how proud she was of me. How she didn't say it enough. How she was afraid I thought she didn't see what I was doing. I remembered that journal. I was the one who helped her pick it out after she lost track of dates and started repeating herself. I bought her 3 of them, each with floral covers. She barely used them, but sometimes, in the quiet, I'd see her scribbling something down. Can we meet? Maribel asked. Talk? No agendas. Just, coffee? I didn't answer. Not yet. Because when you're the one who shows up, day after day, not for glory, not for credit, but simply because someone needs you, you start to learn the difference between people who say sorry because they regret the moment, and people who say sorry because they finally realized they weren't the center of the story. And I wasn't sure yet which one Maribel was. I kept the phone face down on the kitchen table for hours after that last text. Mom's kitchen still looked mostly the same, faded yellow cabinets, ceramic rooster tiles behind the sink, and a row of mismatched mugs hanging from hooks above the window. She loved this kitchen. It was her favorite place in the whole house. She used to hum while she cooked, sometimes sing bits of gospel songs under her breath. Even when her hands started shaking too badly to hold a knife, she'd still direct me from her seat by the fridge. I remember once, near the end, she made me rewash the collard greens 3 times because she said I wasn't respecting the leaves. I laughed, but I did it. Because it made her feel like herself again. So when I sat in that kitchen now, reading and rereading Maribel's messages, it felt surreal. Like she had cracked open a door she never even realized had been closed all those years. But I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to. Because I didn't know how. A few days later, Isaac called. He wasn't one for long conversations, especially not the emotional kind, but his tone was different this time. Softer. You doing okay? He asked. I told him I was. There was a long pause on the line. I talked to Maribel, he said finally. I waited. She told me what happened. About the house. The money. Everything. Another pause. I didn't know either. I know, I said. None of you did. He sighed, and I could picture him rubbing the bridge of his nose, the way he always did when he was processing something heavy. I should have been around more, he added. I don't know. I think I told myself you had it handled, and maybe that made it easier not to ask. That was probably the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. It did, I replied. Make it easier. He didn't argue. There was a silence between us then, comfortable, in a way. The kind that comes after truth, even when the truth isn't pretty. He didn't push me to forgive her. He didn't try to play peacemaker. He just sat in it with me. Before we hung up, he said, "You did good by her, Helena. Don't let anyone make you feel like you didn't." I finally went back into Mom's bedroom the following weekend. It had taken me weeks to even open the door. Everything was still in place, her slippers by the bed, the lavender lotion she loved sitting half empty on the nightstand, her glasses folded on top of a James Baldwin book she never finished. I sat on the edge of the bed and just let myself cry. The kind of cry that doesn't have a shape or a reason anymore. Just waves. Grief like tidewater, coming and going without warning. I opened her closet and found the photo box she used to keep on the top shelf. It was dusty, taped up from years of moving, but inside, there we were. Me, Maribel, Isaac. Every stage of life. First days of school. Christmases. Beach trips. Even a faded photo of us building a snowman in Asheville back in '91, all red noses and puffy jackets. She'd written on the back of each one. That's what got me. Little notes. Tiny memories. Maribel's first ballet recital. Isaac's Halloween cowboy costume. Helena reading under the tree, again. That one made me smile. There were dozens of them. At the very bottom of the box was a letter. To me. I didn't open it right away. I held it for a long time, just running my fingers over her handwriting. When I did open it, the first sentence hit me like a freight train. I don't say it enough, but I see you, Helena. She went on. I know you feel like the outsider. Maybe I let that happen. I let the loud ones take up the room, and you were always so self-sufficient. I think I assumed you didn't need the praise. But I need you to know I noticed everything. She listed the things. The late night calls. The money. The caregiving. The sacrifice. I chose you for the house not because you gave the most, but because you gave without asking for anything in return. And that's what love is, baby. That's what real family is. I hope they learn from you someday. That line stuck with me. I folded the letter and put it back in the box. I didn't cry again. I just sat there, holding it. That was when I finally texted Maribel back. Me, come by Tuesday. Noon. Just you. She replied within 5 minutes. Maribel, I'll be there. And that was it. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive her, or if we'd just sit across from each other in the kitchen like strangers playing at being sisters again. But I knew it was time to start finding out. Even if it took a while. Even if it hurt. Tuesday came. The sky was gray, low clouds pressing down on the mountains like a blanket that hadn't been shaken out. I stood in the kitchen, wiping the counter for the third time, not because it needed it but because I needed to do something with my hands. Mom used to call it nervous busy. She did the same thing before doctor's appointments and PTA meetings. Guess I inherited that too. At 11:58, I heard the tires crunching on the gravel. I didn't go out to greet her. Just waited. She knocked lightly, then pushed the door open, like she used to, back when she visited more often. She held a small bakery box and a paper bag. She wore no makeup, and her eyes looked tired. Hi, she said. Hey. We stood there, not hugging, not reaching out. Just existing in the same space. I brought cinnamon rolls, she offered. From that place on Lexington you liked. I nodded. Thanks. We sat at the kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg Mom always meant to fix. The box sat between us like neutral ground. She opened it slowly. They're warm still, she said. I asked them to heat them up. I picked one, more out of politeness than hunger. We ate in silence for a minute, the air thick with things unsaid. She sipped her coffee. I picked at the edge of the roll, not really tasting it. Then she spoke. I've been going through her journals. I glanced up. She wrote about you a lot, she continued. And not just recently. Like, way back. There was one from 2018. She talked about how you sent money to help with the deck after the inspection failed. I didn't even know the deck failed an inspection. She didn't want anyone to know, I said quietly. She nodded. She didn't write like she was ashamed. More like she was protective of you. Like she didn't want us to turn it into a spectacle. I shrugged. She knew what would happen if she did. I guess so. Maribel looked down. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. But I do. She looked up, her eyes rimmed red but dry. I was cruel, Helena. At the funeral. Before that, even. I thought you were absent. I thought you didn't care. I told myself you came back because you felt guilty. Or because you had nothing else. You weren't the only one who thought that, I said. I know, she whispered. I know. The silence returned, but this time it didn't feel as sharp. I think, she said, clearing her throat, I was jealous. I looked up, surprised. You always did things quietly. And I hated that, she went on. Because people praised me. For the things they could see. The donations, the visits, the clean Instagram stories. But Mom never bragged about me the way she talked about you when no one else was around. She never told me that. She wouldn't, she said. But she did. To other people. To her friend Janet. Even to Jonah once. She told him you were her piece. I didn't know what to do with that. It landed softly, like snow instead of a rock. I guess I just didn't want to believe it, Maribel said. Because if it was true, then that meant I missed it. I missed her, and I didn't even know it. There was a long pause, and then she asked, do you hate me? No, I said. And I meant it. I don't hate you. I wouldn't blame you if you did. I don't. She nodded, swallowing hard. But I'm angry, I added. Still. Hurt, mostly. She closed her eyes for a moment and let the words hang in the air. I get that, she said. I do. We sat in silence again, both staring out the window. The rain had started, a soft drizzle, barely audible. The same kind of rain that came down the night Mom passed. Gentle. Unassuming. Final. I don't expect you to forgive me right now, she said after a long while. Or ever. I just wanted to come here and tell you I'm sorry. For what I said. For what I didn't do. For what I assumed. She reached into the paper bag and pulled out something wrapped in a thin blue scarf. I found this when I was going through her closet, she said, pushing it toward me. It was in the back of a drawer, under a bunch of scarves. I think she meant for you to find it. I took the bundle and unwrapped it slowly. It was a small box. Inside was Mom's locket, the gold one with the engraving on the back. She used to wear it every Sunday. Inside were two tiny photos. One of me as a child, reading under the porch light. The other, her and me sitting together on the back steps, barefoot, smiling. On the back of the locket, the engraving read, for the one who stayed. I didn't cry. I just sat there, holding it in my palm, feeling the weight of it. Maribel didn't say anything else. She just sat with me in that quiet, heavy air. It was the closest thing we'd had to real intimacy in years. And maybe that was the beginning of something. Or maybe it was just a moment. But it was more than we'd had before. We sat there for a while longer, the kitchen quiet except for the soft rain tapping against the window panes. The locket felt warm in my hand now, though I knew that was just the heat from my skin. Still, it felt like something living. Something with a heartbeat. Maribel sipped the last of her coffee, and I watched her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. Without the lens of resentment or memory. Just as she was now. Older. Humbled. Not broken, but maybe chipped in the places that once gleamed with too much polish. She stood slowly and looked at me. "Thank you," she said, her voice low. "For letting me come." I didn't say anything. Just nodded. At the door, she paused. "If you ever want to talk more, about Mom, about anything, I'm around." I didn't make any promises, and she didn't expect them. She walked out into the light rain, and I watched her go. The next day, I got a call from the lawyer handling Mom's estate. There were still some loose threads, small bank accounts, retirement statements, personal effects. "I thought you should know," he said. "Your sister came by. She asked if there was any way to challenge the will." My stomach dropped. "She didn't file anything," he added quickly. "But she was fishing." Subtle questions. "How was the deed transfer made? Was your mother of sound mind at the time?" I felt the heat rise in my chest. It was like the funeral all over again, her voice into that mic, the way she turned something sacred into spectacle. But this time I was ready. I started making calls that afternoon. Mom's old neighbor, Janice, the one who used to bring her soup when she was too weak to cook, wrote a notarized letter about my time living there, the care I gave, the conversations she'd overheard between me and Mom about the house. Dr. Patel, Mom's primary care physician, provided a statement that, yes, Mom had full mental clarity when she signed the deed over to me. "A sharper mind than mine some days," he wrote with a chuckle. I gathered bank records, emails, texts, even a video I'd taken one morning during her lucid weeks where she told me about her favorite memories of each of us. In it, she looked directly at the camera and said, "Helena always shows up. I gave her the house so she'd always have a home." I had receipts. I had paperwork. I had Mom. But I wasn't going to fight her. No. I had a better idea. The following week, I mailed Maribel a small envelope. No note. No explanation. Just a single document inside. It was a letter of waiver, an offer to share a portion of Mom's remaining small cash assets equally among the three of us, after all debts were cleared. It didn't include the house, the land, or anything else of substantial value. Just the leftover account balances and a few bonds. But I attached something else too. A copy of Mom's written statement about the house, her handwriting, her words, her undeniable clarity. I wanted her to read it. Sit with it. See, in writing, what we both already knew. I heard nothing for 2 weeks. Then, one morning, I got a notification from the county clerk's office. Someone had withdrawn a formal inquiry into the deed transfer. She had been digging. Quietly. But not anymore. She got the message. A few weeks later, my phone buzzed. It was an email. Subject, family reunion plans. It was from Isaac. He was trying to organize a small gathering, just us three. No extended family. No spouses. Just siblings. I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. "Me, if it's here at Mom's, I'll cook. You two bring the wine." He replied within minutes. Deal. The reunion was small and awkward at first. Isaac brought local wine from a vineyard near Durham. Maribel brought a basket of handmade candles and homemade preserves. The kind of gift she used to laugh at. She didn't laugh now. She offered them quietly, like a peace offering. We sat around the fire pit in the backyard, me in the old rocker, Isaac on a lawn chair, Maribel curled up on one of the porch swings. We talked about Mom. About her cooking, her stubbornness, the way she never let us leave without a hug no matter how old we got. Maribel didn't bring up the house. Not once. She didn't need to. Because here's the thing about revenge, not the angry, fire-breathing kind. But the satisfying kind. The kind that tastes like silence when someone finally understands what they lost. It's not about taking something from someone. It's about standing your ground so firmly that they realize they never had a claim to it in the first place. That was my revenge. Keeping the house. Keeping my peace. And letting her see that in the end, Mom chose the one who stayed.